afternoon to you all, our amazing viewers. Nigeria's political landscape ahead of the 2027 presidential election has entered another phase of intense debate after Cardinal John Onaiyekan, Archbishop Emeritus of the Catholic Archdiocese of Abuja, raised concerns over the credibility of the country's democratic process. The respected cleric warned that the administration of President Bola Tinubu may be using the advantages of incumbency to secure victory at all costs, sparking fresh discussion about electoral fairness and institutional independence. Speaking during a live interview on Arise Television's Prime Time, Cardinal Onaiyekan expressed concern that Nigerian democracy could face serious challenges if citizens lose confidence in the electoral system. His comments comes as political parties are already preparing for the 2027 contest, with questions growing over whether the next election will provide a truly level playing field for all candidates. The Cardinal's warning has raised a major question ahead of the next election cycle. Can Nigeria guarantee a credible and transparent electoral process where every candidate competes under equal conditions? While the government has repeatedly stated its commitment to democratic principles, critics argue that the power of incumbency remains one of the biggest advantages available to any sitting administration. Cardinal Onaiyekan specifically accused the Tinubu administration of being determined to win the 2027 election by all means.
Statement read by our president was not just put together at random. It was carefully prepared and with wide consultation. The Bishops' Conference is bigger than the group of us that went there, but it's very representative of the Bishops' Conference. First, we had our administrative board, which is representative of all. And to make sure that it's even more representative, we ensure that every archbishop, we are 9 archbishops, will be there too. So it is the Catholic Bishops' Conference that produced that document.
Right.
Wrote, rewrote, wrote and rewrote. So it was not done. It was not written at random, nor did we deliver it with levity. Levity. I think I had an opportunity in this, your program, to remind Nigerians that as bishops, we have no ambitions to take Mr. Tinubu's job or anybody else's job. We are not politicians running for office. We are first and foremost religious leaders who feel we have a duty, not just to preach our religious doctrines, but also to address the lives of our people, both those who are our members and those who are not our members. You can see that from the content and the tone of our statement.
So you become like liberation theologians.
No, not at all. Liberation theologians can be considered more or less ideological, which we are not. Which we are not. You asked me, how did I see the face of
the president in reaction?
I was not surprised that he was not looking very happy. Nor even his colleagues who were there. We knew that this is different from the kind of statements that our president keeps receiving from all kinds of people. And that is one of the things that worries us, that there are so many people hanging around Mr. President, giving him a rosy picture of what the country is, which it is not. And we felt that we have no duty to do that. Indeed, we have the obligation to help him to appreciate the reality of the situation in which we find ourselves. And that is the reality that we painted, which I know is not the kind of thing that he wanted to hear. And the reply shows very clear. When the nation is bleeding, you can't expect a polite meeting with the head of state. We need to let him know. And his reply is that the nation is not bleeding. We told him our economy is not helping our poor people. He told us the economy is doing fine. Practically speaking, He told us quite clearly that he did not agree with us. Again, I said, we're not surprised. We didn't expect him to agree with us. We have done our duty. We have delivered our message. And we have a feeling that somehow along the line, somebody will show him a few of the things we said. He heard it, and he tried to tell us that he heard us, which is precisely why he replied the way he replied. He replied to the points we raised, and disagreed with them. So he must have heard it. The only question now is this disagreement his final position, or will there be people around him whose job it is to draw his attention that these guys who came here in white garments, they have not made any personal requests for oil wells or, or any particular personal things. Maybe we should listen to what they are saying. I think we believe one of the problems within our government right now is there are not too many people telling him the truth, which is a pity. We need to have. Whether in terms of economy or in terms of insecurity, and above all, the area of political climate. The position of Mr. President came very clearly in that statement that he made. In politics, all is fair. Is that true? If that is what politics is, that in politics everything can be done, provided you win election.
Well, clearly that's not correct.
That is not
correct.
If
that
is
what was said, then it is certainly not correct.
That is not. We heard it.
There is propriety in everything, and they
now,
ought to.
And that is what we are worried about. We are worried about the fact that we see clearly that our government is bent on winning by all means. And unfortunately, they have a lot of means at their disposal to win. And they are deploying all those means in a way that eventually, even if we had a free and fair election, the votes of the people may not count. But we gave two warnings.
Right.
We gave two warnings. The one you mentioned. I'm trying to remember now. But the second one is that if we do not rearrange our election system to make sure that elections are really free, fair, and credible, it can lead to difficulties.
Right.
The country doesn't gain anything by a one-party state in a so-called democracy. There's nothing. Of course, we are not expecting Mr. President to help the opposition to defeat him. No. But the point we are raising is that even though the president has all the powers of incumbency, he is in the election, he is a candidate like any other. He is a candidate like any other. And that is why we call our Electoral Commission independent. Now, there are doubts in some quarters about how independent this Electoral Commission,
suggesting that the government has access to significant resources and political influence that could shape the electoral environment. According to him, the concentration of power in the hands of a sitting government could affect the ability of citizens to freely determine their leaders. We are worried about the fact that President Tinubu administration is bent on winning the 2027 election by all means, the Cardinal stated during the interview. He argued that the government's control over state resources and political structures could create an imbalance between the ruling party and opposition groups seeking to challenge it at the polls. The former Archbishop also questioned the independence of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, despite President Tinubu's position that the electoral body remains neutral. He warned that public trust in election depends heavily on whether citizens believe institutions responsible for conducting elections are free from political pressure. Nigeria's electoral history has been marked by repeated concerns over transparency, credibility, and public confidence. Although the country has made progress in strengthening democratic institutions since the return to civilian rule in 1999, disputes over election outcomes Allegations of irregularities and legal challenges have continued to influence public perception of the democratic process. The 2023 presidential election, which brought President Tinubu to power, was heavily contested by opposition candidates who challenged the outcome in the courts. Although the Supreme Court upheld Tinubu's victory, questions surrounding electoral reforms and the effectiveness of existing safeguards have remained part of national discussions. Cardinal Onaiyekan warned that Nigeria must address these concerns before the 2027 election to prevent political instability. He stressed that election must not only be conducted but must also be seen by citizens as credible, transparent, and fair. We gave a warning that if we do not rearrange our election system to make sure that elections are really free, fair, and credible, it can lead to difficulties, he said. According to him, a democracy cannot survive when citizens lose confidence that their votes will determine the outcome of elections. The Cardinal also raised concerns about the possibility of Nigeria moving towards a one-party dominant system. He argued that democracy becomes weaker when opposition voices are unable to compete effectively or when political competition is reduced. We also warned that the country doesn't gain anything by one-party state in a so-called democracy, Onaiyekan stated. He explained that while a president has a constitutional right to seek re-election, the process must remain fair and open to all political participants. However, the Cardinal acknowledged that President Tinubu, as a political leader, cannot be expected to assist opposition parties in defeating his own administration. He clarified that his concern was not about preventing the president from contesting, but ensuring that the rules of the contest remain fair. We are not expecting Mr. President to help the opposition to defeat him, he said. But the point we are raising is that even though the president has all the powers of incumbency, he is in the election. He is a candidate like any other person. Supporters of the Tinubu administration are likely to reject suggestions that the government intends to manipulate the electoral process. They point to the administration's statements on strengthening democratic institutions and argue that opposition parties remain free to organize campaign and present alternatives to voters. Government supporters also maintain that every administration has the right to defend its achievements and seek another mandate from citizens. They argue that accusation of electoral manipulation should be based on evidence rather than political suspicion. However, critics insist that protecting democracy requires more than holding elections every 4 years. They argue that institutions such as INEC, security agencies, and government bodies must operate independently to ensure that voters have confidence in the outcome. As Nigeria moves close to the 2027 election, political competition is expected to intensify. Opposition parties are likely to form alliances. New political movements may emerge, and issues surrounding governance, the economic, security, and electoral reforms will dominate public debates. Cardinal Onaiyekan's warning adds to the growing conversation about Nigeria's democratic future. Whether his concerns lead to stronger electoral reforms or become another political dispute ahead of the election will depend on how government institutions, political parties, and citizens respond in the coming months. The central challenge remains clear. Nigeria must ensure that the 2027 election reflects the genuine choice of its people. For many observers, the credibility of that election will not only determine who wins political power, but also shape the public's confidence in the future of the country's democracy. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you find this insightful, kindly like, share, and subscribe for more news reports. I'm Chidera Esom. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next reports.